Last weekend, I took on the role of being a dungeon master for the first time. There was a lot of nerves and preparations that went into this, but I learned so much from the experience, and I thought I would share with you what I learned from being a DM for the first time ever. Now granted, I'm no expert at this. In fact, I just told you that I DM'd for the first time. There are a lot of better resources out there for you if you're wanting to learn how to DM, but I'm just sharing my personal experience and the things that I learned from my particular party and how I plan to adjust and change as the campaign goes on. And that's right, you heard me. I am now a DM for a whole brand new campaign.
Congratulations.
A part of the reason that we decided to have me try and be the dungeon master is that our current D&D party had finished a several year-long campaign, and then we had tried different variations of D&D throughout these past years. Throughout all of this, my friend John has always been the dungeon master. So we decided with this one-shot, we would try out my hand at being the dungeon master, and he would have the ability to be a player, something that he hasn't done in 6 to 7 years. We decided to do a one-shot from the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount from Critical Role, a world I am very familiar with. When my husband and I were dating, his D&D group graciously let me join their campaign, which was in its final climax and conclusion. Our current DM at the time, John, asked me, "Hey, have you heard of Critical Role? It's where a bunch of voice actors sit around and play Dungeons & Dragons, and I think you would really enjoy it." Little did I know that these voice actors that he was talking about were voice actors from my childhood. You have Liam O'Brien as Gaara from Naruto, Laura Bailey as Trunks from Dragon Ball Z, Ashley Johnson as Gretchen Grundler from Recess, Sam Riegel, Matt Mercer, Marisha Ray, Taliesin Jaffe, and Travis Willingham. I dived into Campaign 2 in 2018 and have never looked back. I've ingested so much of Critical Role, and I am definitely a critter. So, all of this to say, I was definitely comfortable doing a one-shot from the world of Exandria. The experience itself was wonderful. I put on some makeup to amp up my confidence, and my players were more than supportive and patient with me as I DM'd them. They encouraged me afterwards, and we all chose to keep going with these new adventurers and turn this into a full-fledged campaign. Just from this one shot, I learned so much as a DM. I definitely think the prep time was worth it. Hey nerds, so I am just checking in because today is my prep day for my D&D session, my first ever DM session. So I am both very excited and already very overwhelmed. I know that DMs do so much work behind the scenes, and like half of their scenarios don't even get used, and that's exactly what I am doing with this one shot that I'm prepping for. So I will show you my process of what I'm doing. Any DMs out there who watch my channel, wouldn't be shocked if not many do, because I'm not like I'm not Ginny D, like I'm not just a full D&D channel, but I do really enjoy doing Dungeons & Dragons. Anyway, so if any DMs are watching, would love to know your process, what you do, but yeah, so let me just show you guys. So I'm using the 5e Tools website and just taking the entire scenario, which is Wildemount Unwelcome Spirits. It's one of 5 different one-shots in the world of on the continent of Wildemount in Matt Mercer's World of Exandria, so that's super exciting. But yeah, right now I'm just going through it piece by piece, each location, to write down and make a cheat sheet for myself about all of the minis that I'm gonna need if we go to a specific place on our map, that I will need other maps for that location, what miniatures, kind of just quick cliff notes. And granted, I know that I have this, which I'm going to be taking my computer with me to our DM session, and so I will have all of the handy tools here, which you can just literally hover over the stats of whatever creature that you're dealing with, and you can get all their stats there, which is super exciting. But I really wanted a cheat sheet for myself just to always have at the ready to look over. So that's what I'm working on right now. I had started with this of just being like, oh, these are the maps I need to print. These are the minis that I need our current DM, John, to get out for me. He has all of the DMs. He has all the minis, but that I realized this is not going to cover the list that I need. So yeah, I'm just working on this right now. So I will touch back with you in a little bit. Okay, it has been about, I think, 2 hours. And this is all my cheat sheet. Just very short kind of things of like what minis I need, if I'm gonna have a map. Our D&D party is pretty visually inclined, and I agree. I think it's more fun to have maps. So I might be making more than I need to, and luckily also the 5e Tools has a few maps that I can print out as well. So yeah, I am excited to kind of work on the next part, which will be printing out the maps that I need, as well as getting all the minis sorted. And so yeah, I wrote down a few things. So I underlined any important characters with names. I made sure that treasures were noted in any of the places that people needed to go. And yeah, try to write down the important rolls that need to be made. That's my dog, if you hear her. There she is. But yeah, so I wrote down important treasures, specific roles that would be good to have. Again, underline important characters, and then just other things like, oh, the characters will get to second level once they reach a certain point. And then this is my separate little note just to tell me, here are all the maps you either need to make or print out. So there's a lot still to do. I wound up making 12 maps in total, 8 hand-drawn while 4 were printed out and assembled, along with some printed character sheets for quick reference. While we didn't use all of the maps that I had made, we touched on about 50% of them, while some scenarios we played just the theater of the mind. I definitely know that our party is visual, including myself, so having an abundance of visuals was just fine with me, and the maps that we didn't use, we could always come back to later or use in a different scenario. My main takeaway from all of this is something that our previous DM even messaged me while I was prepping. Rules are just guidelines. I was so adamant about following the rules that I got hung up several times during our one-shot. Not terribly, by the way, but thinking about it now, it could have definitely improved the story, because Dungeons & Dragons is not just a game, it's storytelling. I'll give you guys an example. My players had a harder time fighting these giant spiders in a random encounter than our actual final boss. If I hadn't been so rigid about the hit points of the characters, I probably could have made our end boss a lot beefier than what the stats just gave me. That way the end boss really felt like an end boss. I learned you can be a lot more flexible with how battles and scenarios turn out, because as a DM, you're basically God. You're in control of what happens. If you're worried that a situation is too hard, or in my case, too easy, you can adjust the stats accordingly, because the players won't even know. You can also allow your players to be a lot more creative, which will just fuel the narrative going down the line. Hey, I also don't know if I really explained this, but if you have a good D&D party, they're gonna be patient, and they're not really gonna care if you mess up. They're in it for the story, they're in it for their characters, they're not gonna be mad at you. They shouldn't be mad at you if they're a good D&D party. So I just wanted to emphasize that like a little bit more and explain that it's D&D is a game. It's not that big of a deal at the end of everything. So your party should be patient with you, and therefore you should be patient with yourself. So moving forward, I'll definitely allow myself to bend the rules a lot more than I did for this one shot. And I'm gonna let my players guide the story as much as I'm guiding them. But I'm amped to keep playing with these characters and tell their stories. And most importantly, have fun with my friends. I hope you guys enjoyed this just very small kind of story time telling you guys how I experienced being a dungeon master for the first time. I would love to know how many of you guys have tried being the DM or even just the person in charge of a board game, and let me know how that went for you guys. Again, I am no expert at this. I'm not turning into a Dungeons and Dragons how-to. There are plenty of awesome people, including Ginny D, who is very good at explaining concisely and really good information. Not only her experience as a DM, but playing Dungeons and Dragons for years and years. Plus, she is also a fellow critter and is very awesome and talented at singing. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Last weekend, I was a DM for the first time. We chose to do a one-shot from the oh my gosh. Our camp. When I joined my current D&D party, they were finishing, oh no. So moving forward, I'm definitely going to be, but I'm amped to keep playing with these characters. Even just I'm not turning into a Dungeons and Dragons how-to. There are plenty of awesome people, including Ginny D, who is very good at explaining concisely and well thought and well. My main takeaway from all of this is something that our previous DM even messaged me while I was prepping. A part of the reason that we decided to a part of the reason that I decided